Alright. Yeah, so this is a DB podcast. The dark podcast, when you gaze into the abyss gazes back into you, and within the darkness, the light shines. Alright, so read the screen, but when it comes down to the hydrogen and the particle accelerator within Stranger Things, this is how they were able to kind of like activate that dimension and realm where those entities and creatures existed. And they'll tell you they didn't know it existed and they didn't know it was real. They didn't mean to, blah, 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 blah. Why were you trying to activate one in the first place? And that goes to show you the maniac, the fucking insane lunatic dude who was fucking operating, like who was so-called manning the operation, as Mortals put it. He was the one that was possessed by one of these forces within those deeper dimensions and realms and worlds, because why the fuck would you think that was okay to do? Like, he obviously didn't realize, he wasn't conscious of it, but because his mind was hijacked by an alternate force, and the alternate force working along with his other compadres, okay, his fucking other three-letter agency dipshits, okay, allowed this to also occur because they were also being, manipulated by these forces. And they'll put it lightly, like, we were just tempted, we're just a little bit curious. We didn't mean for that to happen. We're not trying to traffic kids. Wait, that's where trafficking kids come from, and as well as sex rings, their blood donors becoming kidnapped, kidney donors becoming kidnapped. Like, the reason why they use them is because just like in the gateway program, they're trying to kind of monitor their psychological abilities, because those psychological abilities, if activated, can basically pick up on the things that happen within these dimensions. And that's how they were able to kind of not only build the particle accelerator, which was built by a god and a goddess, or a goddess. We are the ones who built the particle accelerator first. They didn't. We created it, and they kind of just like it, like as referred to in the previous episode. It was most likely a fallen god and goddess that showed them how to do that after we already created it ourselves. That was the ones that they have now, because you can do research on this if you give a fuck, for whatever reason. That particle accelerators and hydrogen accelerators actually exist. After they were able to kind of manipulate that technology, or manipulate the mechanisms, after we taught them how to fucking use it, most likely a fallen one though, that's when they were able to kind of create those portals to from one dimension to the next. It'll never go to the fifth, but it can kind of create a rift, like a shift in the frequency, which is why they're not able to handle it. If they were to come close to one person while I was being formed, they'd fucking die. But that's why they use machines and stuff, because machines conduct electrical charges, organic electrical charges, to the point in which they can form something that intense. So the intensity of the pressure is what creates the portal. So the portals even is able to be able to jump through, because it doesn't have a soul. It just has a spirit. It's artificially created. It's not an organic portal like a tree or something like that, which is why the tree portal looked a little bit different from the one they had inside the building. The portal inside the building looked fucked up, but the one inside the tree was like, it seemed like that's not even technically how it would originally look, but for the sake of horror, they made it look like that in the trees and shit. Unless it was just like a fucked up dimension and stuff like that, it wouldn't look like that at all. I ain't gonna lie, but it would look a little less quote unquote horrifying, I guess, if you want to put it like. I'm not, I guess, but that's how Immortal would probably feel. Like, well, why the fuck would you even go through that? But like, nah. That shit weird as hell. But anyway, yeah. So that's why they have sex trafficking, because the electrical charge and the psychic abilities of those who are trafficked, when they do experiments on them and they kind of use drugs and stuff like that, the reason why they're using drugs or synthetic drugs, artificial ones, even organic ones like weed, like cannabis and stuff like that, and they'll use the experiments to kind of activate the spiritual depth of these newer spirits, like these incarnated spirits, that they can sense using electromagnetic frequencies. Like they'll use a machine to detect the frequencies within radiating from the vessel or the temple, aka what more is referred to as the body of the ones that they're trafficking. Now, they're not just trafficking anyone. They're trafficking those that they know have certain kinds of genetics. They may have a deeper connection, or a deeper or they may be organic, or the original mortals. This is why they'll even kidnap Dravidians, Mongolians, and the other lots, but usually white sea people. They traffic a lot of them, and you may be like, well, they're just trafficking random people. Well, no, a lot of them are in a spectrum. Yeah, they're on the spectrum. They're like fucking autistic or some shit, and which is why a lot of the Gateway program, if you remember it, in the Gifted and Talented program and shit like that, or they called it the Stargate program, the breeding program. That's why there's so many orphans and shit. That's why the orphan to traffic ring, pipeline is so fucking deep, is because a lot of those kids that are they mutilate, they basically, off their parents or put their parents in a psych ward and shit, left their kid there, and then came back to experiment on them. That's how 11 got created. That's how, that's like a figure of speech in terms of creating. She already had the abilities, but they were doing experiments on their parents already. So, or they knew that their parents were in the spectrum and they had certain abilities, because if you're in the spectrum, you have a depth, a deeper connection within the mind, even if you're an artificial and synthetic mortal, right? Even if your spirit is cloned, like if you're like fucking autistic, like you're gonna be able to access different dimensions or realm, and that the collective of spirits that were created along with the clone spirits, which if you're immortal, you have clone spirit or synthetic spirit. It's deep enough. The connection is so deep enough amongst the collective of them that they're able to access like the fourth dimension, which is the realm of thinking. Now, the ones that are possessed or hijacked, they're manipulated into believing like that's where the souls roam. No, souls can roam in the fourth dimension, but that's not the only dimension that souls roam. That's the realm in which spirits roam. Once again, as mentioned in the previous episodes, which is why a lot of autistic people can like easily lucid dream, even if they're not like, immortal incarnates and shit. And even if they don't have a fucking soul, and which is why they're able to access that information, because they have a deeper connection with the deeper dimensions, being that's where their spirit resided deeply before incarnation, before they formed in what mortals refer to as the physical realm. Okay, to have a temple or a vessel, so they use them, do experiments on them. And, the GOV as well as the military has already weaponized a lot of neurodivergence, dyslexics, ADHD, autism, ASPD. Yeah, they fucking love that shit. Well, that's why homeless to trafficking pipeline is also strong as well, because a lot of the trafficked ones, they are like fucking taking drugs and shit. So their brains are tuned into fucking different dimensions. And that's where you get crackheads are fucking insane, but they're not. They're just existing in parallel dimensions. What did they refer to it as in Stranger Things? Alternate dimensions. Boom.